Well, well, is all I can say. What a ridiculous night of darts at the World Matchplay. It has genuinely been one of the greatest nights of darts I have ever seen. It will never top 2019 and day 4 of that incredible tournament. 3 extra leg games, including Dustin beating MVG 13-11, and then obviously Merv beating Gary Anderson. But I sat here last night and said to you all who are here on the Fallout Bar, right, this is the greatest day of the World Matchplay. It's the most special night, semi-final Saturday. It is the best night of the week, and it has not disappointed. Very welcome.
It hasn't, and it's unusual because I often it's not like I get nervous, but I remember, it's not too many years ago that I remember traveling through to Blackpool for semi-finals night, and it was that year that it was a bit rogue, and we had Callan Ridge and Christoph Ratajski, and it was a straight and sometimes at the match play, semi-finals night can underwhelm because you've only got 2 games. We're used to this entire week where we've had 4 games, and if you have a bit of a dry one, if one's not quite at it, then there's always something there. You've got 4 chances to be entertained. Where when you've only got 2 games, you run out. You haven't got as many opportunities. But by God, like they. And you watch that. I mean, that first game, and we'll go into the detail, of course, folks. But like the first game had me. I had a house full of people tonight. People who aren't darts fans generally. Like they were just. It happened to be in my house, and the darts is on the telly, of course. But literally jumping off their seats and getting people who had absolutely no idea who James Wade and Johnny Clayton were, and knew nothing about these people before tonight, but genuinely getting excited and drawn into it. And then you think, well, it can't get better, can it? That was one of the best semi-finals we've ever seen. And then, lo and behold, the next generation comes along, and I found that, the second game, it's very exciting, Jarlath, because, like, let's be honest, we expect to see that semi-final quite a lot over the next 5 to 10 years. That's a semi-final.
I'd say longer than that, mate.
Yeah, that's a semi-final that we think we're going to see a lot of, and it bodes well, doesn't it? It bodes well for seeing that again, because yeah, what a bloody night of darts. It was superb. Gorgeous.
It certainly was. A very, very warm welcome to the Fallout Bar here on Online Darts, the only darts reaction show dissecting all of what you see at the World Matchplay. We've been here for the past 8 nights. This is our last night on the Fallout Bar because we don't do a Fallout on Sunday, because that means then that Phil and Dan's live lounge gets a little bit spoiled. And we all know who runs this ship. But it is not Phil Bars. But it's Jonathan, Dan Simpson with you here. As you can probably tell, very, very happy today with the result in Australia. Massive congratulations to the boys in red. What a day of sport, by the way. What a day of sport. Lions winning an absolute thriller. Great F1 qualifying. Cricket looks a little bit dicey, depending on the weather and all the rest of it. And then we come to the World Matchplay semi-finals, which is one way to round it off, Daniel. What a night.
Honestly, it's been cracking. Like, obviously, I talk about him a lot on the stream. Billy's he's like sort of the youngest member of the team, but it was his birthday today. So we've had a busy day in the Simpson house, and we've barbecued and we've had loads of people around, but it's been a day filled with sport. We've had, every telly in every room has been on, and everyone's been gathering around it. And, the darts really did put the tin hat on it today. And it's days like today where this is why people will start to watch darts. People in my house who have not watched darts before, they'll watch the final tomorrow, having watched those semi-finals tonight, because if you like sport or you enjoy competition or you anything like that, like enjoy drama in general, you can't not be drawn in by the type of sport that we've seen tonight. It's very difficult. Even if you're not a particular sports fan, if you enjoy drama of any kind, then you can't not be drawn in, because, just wonderful stuff. I'm so pleased because like I say, semi-finals night, we've seen some magnificent ones. But when you've only got 2 games over a long format, there is the potential. We've had some very dry dry semi-finals nights that have really underwhelmed, and they've felt very long. And we just got the complete opposite today, and it was exactly what the tournament deserved. And I'm just blown away. It was so impressive, really good.
Before we dissect it, should say hello to a lot of people already. The chat room very, very busy. There's a lot of people watching us as well, which is great. 11:15 on a Saturday night in the UK. Malachi, Litter with the 9-darter. We will talk about the most perfect leg of all time. And I don't care if anybody tries to tell me Smith van Gerwen was better. Technically, nothing can beat that. The only time it's ever happened was it Nico Springer, wasn't it, in the German in the Super League?
Well, for me. And again, we'll come to this in detail. But my headline on this is that leg between Michael van Gerwen and Michael Smith. Somebody missed a dart. Nobody missed a dart in this leg. It was perfection. It was the perfect leg. Nobody missed a thing. So I think this is, for me, I think it's better. It's the perfect leg. Nobody missed.
Bold, cool. Shelty saying woohoo. I'm presuming of Littler's win against Rock. Kieran, what a night of darts. Crazy. Absolutely, mate. Matthew saying, come on, Wadey. Tomorrow we'll give our predictions and we'll ask you to give yours a little bit later on. Dixie, what a tournament. I think that's a great way of looking at it. 104 average and 40 180s and a fish for Rock in defeat. Incredible. Certainly is. Andy Littler, the best. You did say this last night on the show, Andy, that you might get a 9-darter from your GOAT. He's not the GOAT, but yet, but he is up there. Andrea says, I think the James Wade, yes, he's in the World Matchplay final. We'll talk about that in a second. He's saying Wade averaged over 102 over 38, which is just insane. Wade needing more respect, certainly from a member of our team. Bob says, good evening, lads. Yes, Quinton, you know it. You bloody know it. But it'd be nice if South Africa weren't world champions for once. It'd be great, honestly. Look, love you to bits, but let someone else have a go. Kieran says, what about the fans? I'll touch on that throughout the entire show, Kieran, because I thought overall, the crowd was outstanding. I love the fact that when it got to 16 all in the way, Clayton game, there was silence. You never hear the wind. Only Winter Garden do you hear it silent.
There is, and this is, for those in the chat room who think that at points the crowd were too quiet and they didn't enjoy the silence, you're going to be disappointed, because this show is run by two people who, when in my head, will consistently choose reds over the main room. Like, correct. We like to sit in a quiet room and watch darts and enjoy. Like, and we like everyone in the room to be intensely focused. So yeah, you're going to get one view from us.
Yeah. Andy says, best night of darts that I can remember. Like I say, a 2019 World Matchplay Day 4 will always be the top, unless something truly stupendous happens. But it's up there. It is up there. Bob saying Wade needs to play better than tonight. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Marcus saying this is turning out to be the best match play ever. The final better not be a stinker. Spoiler alert, might be. And Dean saying that was insane. Clayton's comeback, Wade resolve, and Littler's 9-darter and turn around. Wow, Littler is better at darts than anyone has ever been at any other sport. That is a big shout. Certainly. I mean, look, Donald Bradman will always be the greatest player of all time for me in cricket, and I think that no one will ever touch what he's ever done. But that's another entire. And Anthony is over from the USA. He goes. Peacock subscriptions, I better be going up. Right, we already waffled for 10 minutes. Let's get into this. 2 semi-finals that were just off the bloody scale in terms of how good they were. Let's start with the first one. It seems like a very good place to start. James Wade against Johnny Clayton. I have to be honest on this one. When Wadey started, I think Wadey scoring, certainly in the first 15 legs, made me think that we were going to be on air for probably about 10:30. To be brutally honest, I thought we were going to have an early finish. Correct. But and that just shows you just how well I think that Wadey's played this week. I haven't seen his scoring that good since he won the 2021 UK Open, because in that he was untouchable. Really, there was only one real game where he was in proper danger. But the big, certainly in the first session, that 1-6-1 to break, and I thought that was a big moment. But then obviously Clayton breaking straight back. Then Wadey went on after the first break and won that mini session. I think it was 4-1 in the end. So he's 7-3 up at the break. In the second break, and I'm thinking, right, this will be a 15, this will be a 17-11 game. Wadey ain't going to lose from here, because that first part of it, Dan, he was basically unplayable.
It was, I mean, it wasn't even wading, because it was like a level above wading. It was beyond wading. It was better than wading. All the things that we're used to James Wade doing. Turning up, finding a level, winning. Just taking those legs off people, big finishes. Whereas, once again, what we were seeing from James Wade wasn't that. It was just, for want of a better word, unbelievably high level elite darts, like really top tier darts. And James is an incredible player. I've always been a James Wade fan. I've always enjoyed watching him play. I think that I don't think he's anywhere near as underrated as he thinks he is. I think lots of people think he's a tremendous player. He's very, very, very good.
No, I agree with
that. But I think he's quite watchable, because it's quite funny and he's quite good on stage. And I think he makes for watchable darts. But this was I think we've seen a different James Wade all week this week. Now, I've been quite lucky because other than today, I've been in the room every day, and I've been in the press room every day. And I've seen a lot of the players backstage, and I've seen the other elements of sort of what's going on. And it is a different James Wade on stage this week to what we're used to seeing, because this isn't typical James. We're used to seeing the machine, the machine, the routine, this is the wading. It's not this. We haven't got that at all this week. We've got a very, very different James Wade, and it is levels above what we've seen, and it's terrifying for the tour, because we'll probably break it down in a lot more detail on the live lounge on Monday. But where he's getting to in terms of his ranking, his world ranking, the things that he's going to be qualifying for, and the seeding that he's going to get himself in those things, and the way that he is going to start forcing the hand of the PDC to include him in certain things is going to become quite interesting. Very interesting.
There's a certain member of our team, I think, that will not be very happy at the fact that James Wade is now world number 5. But we'll let him say his piece on the live a little bit later on Monday. The thing is, right, just before, by the way, I saw this comment from Alex, by the way, and yes, you bloody can. What a test match that was with the Lions, right? The big thing here is that, though, when he got into 16-10, I thought, right, this game's done. Don't need to worry about it. Wadey's in the final, and he deserves to be, because on that side of the draw, I think he's probably played the best out of everybody this week, to be brutally honest. But then,
that is it. And I apologize for bringing you back. That he has been in that side of the draw, within that quarter, the best player. And we often see, we'll often see players have an amazing performance in the first round. They'll come out, average 106, 104, and then they'll have a shitty second round game. And then you can think, oh, well, the person that played the best, then he had a shit game and he went out. I don't think you can make a coherent argument that James Wade has not been the best player in that half of the draw by some degree. Like in every aspect of what it is to be a good dart player, whether it's finishing, whether it's the scoring phase, whether it's just the match play is funny, isn't it? Because I think it requires, certainly when you get into these longer formats, an incredible amount of mental strength, more so than set play. When you're playing set play, you are only ever 3 legs away from getting back in the game. If you can rattle off 3 on the spin, you get the leg on the board, and all of a sudden things change very quickly in set play. When you're playing match play, when you're playing this long format of just leg after leg after leg, if you do get behind, or if you get ahead and you are trying to race to the front, I think the amount of mental strength it takes to compose yourself is far greater. I think it's a really tougher mental challenge than a set play tournament is. And I don't know whether it's the fact that James has had his 20th experience on the Winter Garden stage. It's his 20th match play. He didn't do too badly in his first one, by the way. I'm pretty sure he made the final his first appearance, did he not?
Yes, and then he obviously won it the next year.
Won it the next year, final the year after. I think this is his 7th final, and he got off to a blistering start. We haven't seen him at the back end of so much of late, but unfortunately for his detractors, he is at the moment backing up everything that he says, and he does. He walks into interviews, and I've seen him in the flesh this week. Walk in, put his hands on the table, and say, "I am one of the best dart players on the planet." And he'll then say, "I'm one of the best dart players ever." And then you watch him work, and you think it's becoming very, very hard for his detractors to argue against that. It's becoming incredibly difficult because he's backing it up.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, you go back to just the stats on Wadey, and we will touch about this in a second. Evening as well, Lyle. Hope you're all good. Really, really nice stat, which I'm going to use in a second. So hold fire. You're coming at the right time. The big thing here is with Wadey is that you look at it. I think it's only him and Philip Douglas that have won titles in 3 different decades in the PDC. That's just off the scale for a kickoff. You then look at the fact of his longevity in the game. You look at what he's done. Yes, he is not a world champion, and he never will be a world champion because he hates Alexander Palace and hates set play. But there is no doubt in my mind that he is the best player to never win one. And you can make a coherent case, especially if he goes and wins this again tomorrow. You can make a coherent case that he's in the top 5 of all time. And I don't think people would go, no. I think people would listen to the argument, if that makes sense.
They have no choice but to. And what you've got to do then is you have to think, if you want to argue against it, you've got to think very hard about who number 5 is. And you have to start, putting together an argument. There isn't an easy response to it. You can't brush it aside and say, "Oh, of course not, it's on." No, you have to start to really think and go, "Oh, well, actually, if I actually give more credit to this or to that," and you have to start to look at nuances, and it's a bit of what you like, right? So therefore, he's in the conversation. He has to be in the conversation. I think it's really good. I'm often surprised. Obviously, James and I are fairly similar in age, and I look back at those early walk-ons when he's coming out to what was it? Fat Man Scoop.
Fat Man Scoop. Jesus Christ! Yes,
there we go. So Fat Man. Well, in the early days when he was coming out to Fat Man Scoop, which were in the days where I was going out, early days of going to nightclubs, and Fat Man Scoop had just come out. And, like I say, I feel like it's been a very long journey. However, the point I'm trying to get to is, James is 42. There are an awful lot of players older than James Wade playing on the Pro Tour. And yes, he says in his interview, he played John Lowe and he played all the greats. He played an awful lot of matches against Phil Taylor. Lost more than he won, but he played a lot of them. But
not many people have.
But he's only 42, and he could do 10 more years if he wished.
Easily. But we need to.
If he keeps this level, maintains it for a time, he is a massive threat at the highest level of the game.
But before we talk about it a little bit more, we have to touch on the comeback here, because I didn't see this coming. I think many people saw this coming. The fact that Clayton could win 6 on the bounce when he's on the brink. Do you know what I mean? Clayton, the 72 is great. The 102 is fantastic with Wadey sat there on 106 as well. That 72, by the way, was Wadey on 61. So there's a big thing. Obviously, he then goes and hits double 16 to make it 16-13, and then he goes and hits the 25 and all the rest of it. I think a key moment here, again, Wadey was on 60, had a chance at it for the match. He obviously had the 120 that he didn't do. But then he takes out the 120 himself, and it was a perfect 120. That was 15, sorry. And again, Wadey on a 2-dart combo, but then Clayton goes and hits tops to make it 16 all. It shows that the strength of the ferret is just off the scale.
Well, so for you at that point, and I wasn't sure, like I genuinely wasn't sure what this was, and maybe it was a little bit of both. But when that started to happen, that leveled up. For you, do you think it was Wade? Did he see the finish line and he fumbled his lines a little bit? Or was it that the ferret found a second gear, or do you think it was a bit of both, or do you, like where do you think that came from?
I think there was a little bit of finish line lights because of the way Wadey had been playing throughout the entire game. You know, you can't very rarely can a player keep up to that level. By the way, Andy saying RVB in the top 5. You will never hear me say RVB's in the top 5, but that's another issue entirely. Right.
Despite the colour of our background, you are not preaching to the converted here.
Absolutely not. But I think there was a bit of both, and I think that's a fair enough statement. I think Clayton just thought, well, I've got to lose here. By the way, the amount of swearing tonight, in particular from Wadey, he could probably fund the next 5 Christmas parties.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Absolutely,
I'm here for it.
Absolutely
here for it.
Yeah,
but yes, so it was a bit of both, I think, and I think Clayton just found a bit of a storm. And then when you have the Gardens on your side, because they want to see more darts, they paid their money, they want to see as much.
That's it. They like you're in the venue. If you're not an avid fan of either player, what you want to see is all of the drama that's possible. Let's be honest. That's what you've been there this week. I'm in there all week. Like, if you're not particularly attracted to either player, like as a fan, then you just want to see the most darts you can and the biggest drama possible. So anyone wanting, everybody in the room wants sudden death, because what's more exciting than sudden death?
No, I'll tell you. And this is the point I was going to make that Bob has just made well, that he never got a match start until overtime. And that was because of the way that Clayton was playing. So you can't say that he bottled it at that point, because he didn't miss a shed.
Yeah, he wasn't missing a load of darts. Yeah.
By the way, I wouldn't say that he got shaky against Van Veen. I don't think that he did. I think that he started poorly. He had an unbelievable couple of middle sessions, and then he just rode onto the win, to be honest. But that's another issue entirely. So we get to 16 all, and then I think I know it didn't mean much in the end, because obviously in the 34th leg he goes and misses the dart, which would have won in the match at it would have been a double 18. But I thought that 161 just to stop the rot at that point was such a key turning point for James Wade, hitting that second 161 with the ferret on the same finish as well. I just thought at that moment, I went, he's got this. It
is, and it's the big finish as well, because let's be honest, it's the headline, the 161's. It's a highlight reel, and it does different things to the crowd. It does different things to the players putting that in. Like for him, it's that monster. It is that digging his heels, like bang, bang, bang. I'm winning this. There's nothing I can't do. There is nothing I can't do. I can hit 161 as many times as I need to in this match. I can do it. So it's a huge confidence boost for him. The crowd is electric, because we were in the living room. People who've never seen darts before jumping up. The 161s in that match were just amazing. But that one in particular, I think, was just it was so key and so important to him getting to that finish line. What a game. Loved it.
He gets the 38th leg. He's 19-18 up. Clayton misses there. One dart. Misses 2 darts, obviously, to send us into the sudden death, which you haven't seen in a match play semi-final for a long time, I don't think.
No.
And then Wadey cleaning it up on double 9 in the end. Sorry, go on.
Just before we get to that as well, because we'll talk about Johnny. But before we get there, I thought what was quite interesting is we have seen some not typical James Wade routes to finishes this week. James Wade generally doesn't go 25 double 18. That's not a route James Wade would ever normally go. We have seen not only have we seen him going some routes that are slightly out of his wheelhouse, but we've seen him actually taking them out as well. It's not that he's going a different way; he's going a different way and finishing them. I think it's very interesting for a man who is so known for his particular ways of going around the board. The fact that he's mixing it up a little bit and starting to use that double 18 a little bit more, which we noticed tonight, that double 18 was coming to play quite a bit, which is not normally, for a left-handed player, that part of the board is not something that certainly James Wade doesn't normally lean into that. But we saw him setting up the double 18, which I found very interesting, quite intriguing.
So a word on Johnny. Obviously, as Bob mentioned, plenty of some plus finishes, and you're correct. 6 overall, including 4 for the Ferrets. That 161 himself as well, hitting that. He was 44% on the doubles, which I think was probably the turning point in the match. He hit 9 180s to Wadey's 8. It was just a quality game. And sometimes, unfortunately, there has to be losers in darts. That's sport. It's why we love it. But as a whole, I think for Johnny this week, it's been a very, very big week because he defended most of the money that he won 2 years ago. He's now back to world number 8. If he'd have won tonight, he would have been back to world number 5, and he would have been a free hit then for the rest of the year in that sense. But the fact that he's defended most of the money at Blackpool this week, I think, especially with the way that he's been playing this year, and he's been reaching semi-finals, reaching finals regularly, hasn't won a big one yet, but I don't see why he can't challenge for them in the future this year in particular. The Ferret's back, baby, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I haven't been particularly. I think we haven't given a great deal of thought nor discussion in recent weeks to Johnny's ranking coming into this event, and I think that's because we knew that Nathan Aspinall was coming in defending 200k and 20 odd places in the rankings. That obviously was the big conversation in terms of defending money and rankings and things like that. And I think it took it distracted away from Johnny, and he's quietly worked his way through this tournament, as he often does. Johnny's a gorgeous player to watch, and he's a very, very lovely man. But he goes about his business in quite a quiet and professional way. And he works his way through tournaments, and he's done exactly that. But yeah, he's secured, I think, a lot of that ranking money. He's protected himself within the top 10. But in doing so, he's had a really, really good showing on the big stage, and he goes into, let's be honest, a really tight season of televised big events, majors, some would say. Premier television events, others would say. But we go into that season with a very confident Ferret who knows he can win on stage, and who isn't now worrying about his ranking too much because he's not, he's protected a lot of the money that he was carrying. I think he's dangerous. Very dangerous.
The fact is, just a final point. Yeah, just a final point on this. The fact that he's only got 15% more of his money that he's defending this year, which means it could be very, very big. Final word before we hear from Wadey. I'll be honest with you, it's an extraordinary brief clip, but we will hear from him. This is the stat I was going to use from Al and from Lal on the Weekly Darts Cast. The fact is, right, he has been in 8 overtime games now at the World Matchplay that he's won. And that just shows the quality of the bloke. People might not like him, and that's fine. You are allowed not to like people. That is how sport works. But bloody hell, you have to respect him. To get to 10 semi-finals in 20 years, and this is going to be his 7th appearance in the final. We would be talking about this more if Philip Douglas didn't do what he did in Blackpool. So, I mean,
yeah, he is, one of the he's in the top 3 greatest match players ever. If you look at what he's done throughout tournaments, without it's been remarkable. Like you said, to 50% of the time the guy makes the semi-final, and he does that for 20 years.
I know.
For 20 years, he makes the final, the semi-final, 50% of the time. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and obviously the fact is that for 5, well, he's been runner-up 5 times. Obviously, he's played Michael Van Gerwen and then Phil Taylor in all other finals that he's played, which is just off the scale, really.
Well, a little bit is it's similar to the some of the great tennis players that have been unfortunate. Yeah, that have been unfortunate enough to have to spend the majority of their career playing alongside the greatest of all time. And unfortunately, you could live in any other era of the sport and you'd win a shitload of trophies, and you would have been, you'd have had a massive bursting trophy cabinet. But unfortunately, you've happened just by bad luck to play, alongside the GOAT, and therefore he's just collecting every pot there is.
Right, let's hear from him then. Here is James Wade talking in his press conference after his 20 legs to 18 win against Johnny the Ferret Clayton.
Just happy to win. I'm exhausted. Not very often I walk after a game of darts. We all go like, "Oh, I'm tired." I am genuinely, absolutely bamboozled after that. I'm obviously the pressure did get to him a little bit, and what have that.
Bob asked the question. Is that the best we could come up? Is that I'm going to have a word with Mr. Bars tomorrow, because is that the best we could have come up with?
Well, Bob said that. Yes, he will be fined. Like I say, he could have fined him. He could have paid for the next 5 Christmas parties. He was swearing that much, but he is in the final of the World Matchplay, where he will play. It is a proper generational class. It's obviously a rematch of the UK Open final that we saw earlier on this season. A king number on James Wade that night. It was lovely for me, though, because it meant I was home by midnight. So thanks, Luke. Right. Look, this was... where the fuck to start with this? And I'm sorry for swearing, but it is 11:30 at night. We've gone past the watershed. Where do we start with this? I said that this could be game of the tournament. And you can make an argument that it might not have even been game of the bleeding night. It was just off the scale. Like these two, I put a message into our group chat earlier on, right? And I said, didn't I? I said that this is depressing to watch because Luke Littler is 18, Josh Rock is 24, and they're both playing like this. If they continue at this level, darts for the next 25 years could be just off the scale, alongside obviously the Humphreys too.
It is, but obviously, but the other side of that is like fandom, because like at home tonight, you can judge my parenting all you want if you think about what time that second match started. But,
especially we're going to go to Blackpool tomorrow, lad.
But my kids are very, very big fans of Luke Littler. And if you could have seen, in fact, I will say, I'll get Mrs. Eskis, but she filmed it. She had a phone out. I'll send you the video of Ted, who's 5, and the level of excitement that he had worked himself up, that Luke Littler was going to make his walk on, that we were going to hear green light. Like it's, and we've never had that in darts. Like we've never had, because he's not the only one. There is now there is a generation of little young people, small people, who are watching darts on TV and getting excited to watch walk-ons. That's never happened in darts. We've never had 5, 6, 7-year-olds getting giddy with excitement, asking to stay up late to watch the walk-on. And that was the argument was, I know I'm not allowed to watch the match because it's too late. Can I watch Luke walk out?
Oh,
that's
where, yeah, fair enough.
That's
fair
where
enough. Saturday night as well.
That's Saturday where darts is getting to.
Well, like, and go on.
And these two are part of that. They are that next generation, those younger players that are dragging along and bringing in people and that of every age, but particularly young people, to enjoy. And then you drag them in, and once you've got them watching, and you give them then something like that, you give them a game like that to watch.
Well, before we go and talk about yeah, I was going to talk about this before we go on to the perfect leg. This is the one thing that I wanted to say, which was obviously that The big thing here is that obviously I was at the Winter Gardens on Wednesday. Saw your lovely self. We ended up in a lovely evening.
We did.
We did. Well done. Congratulations. I won't say what war, but congratulations.
Thank you.
I have never seen the demographic. Yeah, did you spend that with the winnings? Did you? I have never seen the demographic at the Winter Gardens so young ever. There were so many young kids there trying to get an autograph.
And it is.
It's
so
brilliant.
This isn't the place for it. I normally rant on the live lounge about it, but I do have an active rant about how young people, young fans are the future of the sport. Like they're the future players, they're the future fans, they're the future people with money in their pocket in the future to come and spend on it. You have to bring them in and look after them and keep them as fans. And I don't think that darts does a particularly good job of that. The family areas are shit and tiny. There is no concessions for children. It costs the same for me to take a 5-year-old as it does to take me. That doesn't make sense. Like, that doesn't work like that in any other sport. Why am I paying the same price for a 5-year-old? Ridiculous. But I agree with you. When I've been in the Winter Gardens all week this week, what I have seen is more children than ever before. I've seen more. I've never seen so. And I think it's like I've got 3 kids. I work in schools. I want loads of people. I want kids involved with arts. It's beautiful and amazing. What I think, and this isn't the time. This isn't the show for it. But the PDC needs to capitalize on that, in my opinion, and they need to start looking at how we accommodate families and children at big events, because they are the future of the game. They are your future players. They are your academy players. They are the people who are going to come and spend money on and in this game. You've got to keep them.
Very well said, mate. Very well said. Let's take a look at the game then. Obviously, brilliant first session for Josh. Luke was all over the place. And Gob obviously was on with us last night. Welcome back, Jack. Always good to see you. I've never called you Jack in my life. I don't know why I called you that.
How unusual.
I know. But he said at the time that if Rock was going to win this game, and I had Rock winning this game. I think I had him actually 17-14 winning this game last night. I am shocked that, well, sorry, I'm not shocked at all, because if Rock was going to go on and win the game, this is what Gob said, he had to start well and he had to front run. And you can't start better than going up 5-0. But Luke, I think it's fair to say, was off a little bit in that first session. A little bit. He certainly wasn't off it in the second session. The perfect leg. It is the most perfect leg of darts that has ever happened. I remember watching this. I literally screamed at both on nines just at the same time that Wayne did. But it was just...
I think I was 1 dart early.
Were you? It was off that leg. I said it earlier that it is the most perfect leg of darts. I don't care if you want to try and claim that Smith Van Gogh was more perfect. It wasn't. It literally cannot be more perfect than that. No.
Yeah,
Rock had an average of 180 and lost the bleeding leg. That's ridiculous.
It can't be a perfect leg if somebody misses a dart. If you miss, you can't be perfect, can it? If you miss.
No.
If somebody misses, it's not perfect. That was what we saw tonight was the perfect. Every single dart that a player threw went exactly where that player wanted it to go. Every dart was perfect. It was the perfect leg. It cannot be beaten. It is elite. No. There is that is the very top tier, the height that you cannot achieve any better. It was magnificent. And
go on.
And of course, it's him that does it, isn't it? Of course, it's him.
One thing on this before we move it off, because we've got loads still to talk about around this game. The big thing here is that one huge moment for me was the fact that I look at it and go, this is just if this happens every time, it's the first time they've ever met.
That's
in
it.
A PDC event.
Yeah.
But the big thing I thought here was the fact that Rock, this is what I was going to say, Rock would have hit that 9. If he missed it, Rock, I think, would have hit it, because they were just in such a great rhythm.
Yeah.
And that was the key thing. So Rock obviously goes into the second break, 7-3 up, and then he goes in at 9-6 up. I thought him winning that 15th leg, especially with Luke back on 88, I thought that was really important. And obviously at that time, I was thinking, right, okay, he's had the lead cut a couple of times, but he's there. He's still got a 3-leg lead. We're all good here in terms of my prediction. The key turning point was the fourth session. Rock just went missing, particularly on the doubles. Like going into the third session, I think he'd missed 20 darts at double at that time. He could have easily been 14-1 up. He was playing that well. But in the fourth session, he just missed it. He went for a walk. I don't know what happened. Maybe he didn't come back from the break, from the toilet break quickly enough. But Luke then hit 5 legs in a row and at 11-9. And I thought at that point, this game's done. You could not let him get the fact that he was 5-0 down and got to double digits quicker than Rock did. I just thought, ball game, see you later.
But I think that there's an awful lot. I mean, there's an awful lot written about Luke Littler because it's what most of the shit media wants to do. It's what most people that want to get somebody to click on something. It's easy if you just tag Littler in it, isn't it? Or say his name. Then just people will click it.
Say his name and he appears.
Correct. But I genuinely think, like, whilst he is a generational talent at throwing darts, there is a mental strength that kid has that players who have been around for a very, very long time that we consider the very best at composure and mental strength and digging in and not knowing their beat, and the resilience that we see from players like and I'm talking in recent years, from players like James Wade, Gary Anderson, Peter Wright, any number of Michael Van Gerwen, and they'll turn something on, that mental strength of, well, I know I'm better than him. I know I am the best player in the world, and therefore it doesn't matter if I'm 6, 7, 8-0 down. This is first to 17. I can win 15 in a row. It's fine. And I can't remember seeing in any sport, and I watch a lot of sport as you do, like a player with that amount of mental strength in-game mental strength. And I know I don't like. Off the hockey is different, all sorts of things. The in-game, like, psychology that kid can apply to his own talents is what makes him what he is. Because there are so many players who are highly experienced at the high, who've won countless trophies, going in at 5-0 down at the first break would have completely mentally broken. Mentally broken. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen to players who have won everything. The fact that he can weather that storm, like don't forget, this is becoming a bit of a pattern. He was 4-1 down in his quarterfinal.
I mean, he was 7-2 down to Jermaine Watermina.
This is what I mean. Like, he was 4-1 down at the first break of his quarterfinal. And then he was 7-2 down to Jermaine Watermina. And I'm not going to go into detail. I spoke to a member of his family. That's the level of detail I'm going to do. At the break when he was 4-1 down. And they were incredibly relaxed. And they literally looked at me.
Why wouldn't you be?
They literally looked at me and said, well, as long as he breaks in the next session, he'd be fine. And I just thought, whoa, like that, that there are huge, world-class players that would have been so mentally tormented by the fact that they'd had their arse handed to them for 4 out of 5 legs and scraped one. And the mindset, even of those watching, of these closest people, were, well, as long as he grabs a break, he'd be all right, won't he? Because he'll just rattle them off. And
he did.
And it's an elite mindset that we rarely see in any sport, not just darts. It's so impressive.
Well, Kaz was talking about that full session there and saying he averaged 113, and that's right. And it is difficult to win a leg, but when you got to play the best players in the world, you have to find a way. It doesn't matter how you do it. You can win it in 9, you can win it in 29. It doesn't matter how you do it.
Yep.
You just need to make sure that you don't get what, especially as there was so much momentum at that point with Luke. And obviously then after that, he then goes and breaks again at 13-10 at the time. So he broke at that point. Again, if you didn't think the game was done then, with the best one in the world, you haven't watched darts, because it was done. There was no way that Rock was breaking him back twice. He might have broken him once, and he did, but he did not. There was no way that he was going to win the game from there. And I mean the stats. I mean the stats are just mind blowing. Both of them averaging well over 104. Like Rock's averaging 104.15, as James I think mentioned earlier in the chat room. 14 180s. He's hit a 170. Hit the big fish, which was massive in context of the game. Then he goes and hits that 120 as well. And you are thinking at that point, you're thinking it's on, but it obviously wasn't. The biggest problem here for me was the checkouts, 14 out of 41, in particular in those first 3 sessions when he was bossing the game. If you're going to beat Luke Littler, you have to take those chances at that point, especially over such a long format.
Yeah, 100%. And that it's difficult, isn't it? Because when a player has played so well, and when what's come back at him is that it's difficult to critique it in it, because what you're doing here is you're literally dipping into the margins between like unbelievably brilliant and tremendous. Like, and you're trying to find a line in between to say, oh, you didn't quite make it to there. I honestly take nothing but positives for Josh Rock from this week. I do think he walked into that game with a lot of pressure off, because the world and that is currently the privilege afforded to anyone who plays Luke Littler. Like, anyone that plays Luke Littler walks into a game on a bit of a free hit. Like, the world will give you a free hit. No one will criticize you. No one will slag you off. You won't be in the papers getting slated saying that was disgraceful. Like, you're on a free hit. But I thought he played very well. But all week, I think Josh Rock has given an incredibly good account of himself. Not just in the way he's played superbly, but like he's a good bloke, and he's come across very well. His interviews, he spoke very well, and I just think it's very exciting, because we have seen there in that match what we are undoubtedly going to see again and again and again and again. And we're going to see it in semi-finals, and we're going to see it in finals. And make no mistake, folks, Luke Littler has got the better of Josh Rock today. But Josh Rock can beat Luke Littler. And when you see this match happen again in a semi-final or a final, like this game is not one and done. It's not a one-way street. These two are going to take lumps off each other for years to come, and they are going to stop each other from breaking records. In my opinion, I think they're both that good.
Well, now Rocky's obviously moved to world number 11, which is big for him. Obviously, a person I look at is Luke Humphries. Obviously, he had a number of semi-finals, a couple of finals as well before he eventually got over that line. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. He's not going to go and piss the Grand Prix like Luke did that week. But you have to get that experience of losing big matches. And of course, he made his maiden PDC TV semi-final at the UK Open last year. It was weird, obviously, that the 4 semi-finalists for the UK Open were the 4 semi-finalists of the Matchplay, which I did think was a nice little round stat there. But big story there for Josh Rock. And you mentioned it quickly before we touch on the freak, and we'll talk about him a little bit more. The big thing here is that I feel sorry in a way for Rock, because again, I look at who's played well each side of the draw, and I think that Rock, I'm not saying that didn't deserve to make the final. He's averaged 107 and hit 15 1/8, for fuck's sake. But overall this week, in the bottom half of the draw, I think Josh Rock has probably played the best out of anybody. So, and he didn't disgrace himself tonight.
No, but I think that is largely because Luke Littler has repeatedly given himself sort of hard work to do. You know, he started very slow and had to come from behind against Jermaine Watamania, and that meant that it sort of, you know, that game flattered to deceive a little bit, and the performance, whilst we had 108 average against Ryan Searle, and that was a monster, there wasn't a lot coming back at Luke from Ryan. You know, it was a bit of a sort of average performance, under average probably. Yeah, Josh has been superb, but you know, that's what happens. That's how it goes. Sometimes the best player, like we said, sometimes the best player gets through to the final, like James Wade does in that half of the draw. Sometimes we see players average 109 and then they turn up in the next round and average 89 and go out. And you know, the best player doesn't always, you know, the best player in any one game, but yeah, you look over that tournament and think, well, you have to work your way through the draw. Luke's beaten everyone, and not only is he beaten everyone, he's done it consistently in a way that's like newsworthy is the wrong word, but you know, it gives discussion points. He averages 108, or he goes down 5-0 and then comes back and wins, or he goes down 7-2 to Jermaine Watamania, then he comes back and it's always providing a story, a narrative. By God, he's doing some favors to the press.
Well, we'll hear from him in literally just a second. I was going to say, Josh Rock, if he'd have made that final coming through, Ross Smith, Michael Van Gerwen, Gerwin Price, and then Luke Littler would have been some route to the final, but he's not there. It is the freak, the 18-year-old world darting champion of anything that he wants to play in, has won all 9 semi-finals now that he's played in a PDC major. He has made 9 finals in 15 major events. He's the talk of darts, and he was talking to us in the press conference.
Yeah, obviously when myself, I'm going out in 11, 12, maybe even 13 each leg. Obviously you feel unbeatable in the moment, and for myself, as soon as that first treble 20 lands right on top of the wire, on top of the bottom wire, it's perfect, because you know as a player, most of the time you're going to fill it up. But for myself, the cover shots tonight were unbelievable. And yeah, doubles, I think I had higher than Josh by 1%, which is surprising. But yeah, fair play to Josh. He played his part, and just glad to get into the final. I think we practiced tonight, done a little 1-2-1 to 170 checkouts. He literally told me, get up off your ass and practice with me. 1-2-1. I went, oh, okay, James. I think it is the greatest. There was all of them trebles and the double were perfect.
Yes, it bloody was, Luke. It was amazing to see. Right, we will preview the final in just a second. Obviously, you are going to the Women's World Match Play very, very soon. Actually, you're going in about 13 hours. It will be
It's a long drive as well, so I'm actually setting off relatively soon.
Yes, we will keep it brief. A very quick question: how does Bo Greaves not win this title? Is my honest question to you. Anyone?
Food poisoning outbreak, probably. As my insurance company would say, an act of God.
Yes, that's it. We don't need to really.
And the sky would fall. Something, an act of God. Something would have to happen.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on this. Bo Greaves pisses it tomorrow afternoon. Yes.
I can't see. Yeah, I mean, there's some talent in there, and yes. I don't want to be dismissive. There is some talent in there. There is some very, very good talent in there. However, the talent that is in there is just not as good as Bo Greaves, because she is on another plane, I think, to the players that she's going to meet tomorrow, and I think it's going to be fairly routine.
Yeah, there are levels to this game, and Bo Greaves has different levels to everybody else. Right, correct. There we go. So we do have a rematch of the UK Open final. Chat room, for the final time, we need you to get involved and give us some score predictions. Before we give our own score predictions, where is this game going to be won and lost, my friend?
Oh, well, I'll tell you where it. That's a difficult question, because
Well, I like to throw them in.
no, I like because I don't think it matters. So the short answer to your question is right at the very end, because I don't think it matters a jot to either of these players what the score is at the first break. I don't think it matters a jot what the score is at the second break. I honestly think that I don't care what the score is going into it, or sort of going through it. It all happens at the back end. If it's 5-0, 6-0, 7-0 to either side, doesn't matter.
No,
Really doesn't matter. I don't think it will be as one-sided as the UK Open final.
I agree, because James hasn't got as long to practice, and he didn't, and he hasn't had to practice the entire day.
I feel like that was. I haven't got it in front of me, but it was. Was it 11-2? 11.
It was.
It was either 11-2 or 11-3, and it was a big
11-2. 11-2.
It won't be like that at all. But do I? Oh, bollocks to it! Bollocks to it!
No.
Yeah.
No, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
No, you're not doing it.
You know why?
Don't do
You know
it.
why? Because tomorrow I'm in the venue and I have to look him in the eyes when he walks back through the curtain. And
Don't do it.
I'm going to do it. I feel like, that meme of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? That's me and you at the minute.
Don't do it. Because you're gonna look silly on Monday.
I look silly every Monday, mate.
That's a fair point. Well made.
I look silly every Monday. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
You're going to go with Wadey?
I'm going to predict that the 2025, on the 20th anniversary, it's almost too romantic. Like, I am a romanticist, and everybody knows at heart, there is, I desperately want a story, and I want some of that romanticism. There's loads of opportunities. And I know that you don't want to see the amount of narrative that we would see regarding a triple crown. If Mr. Littler won it, we would see an awful lot of triple crown narrative.
Certainly from one of the members of our team.
Which I know you don't quite buy into that.
I do not, because triple crown does not exist.
Therefore, I'll go with I'm going James Wade to win. I think he's going to win 18. How close? 18-14. James Wade.
Okay. So I can see that happening. If you were going to give it like an 18-16 or a 19 or extra time, there was no way that James Wade's winning that if it gets closer.
Nope.
So fair enough. Right, let's go through some scores in the chat room before I give my thoughts on it. Littler 18-10 to Paul. Kieran says 18-12 to Littler. 18-15 says Quintin. Daniel's got 18-13. Wade, is that your burner account? James 18-11 to Littler, and Bob's got a Wadey 18-15. Lorraine, Andy's going 18-4. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I really generally don't.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. But the level that Wade is playing at the moment, he will hold virtually all of his legs. And I genuinely believe that. He will hold virtually all of his legs. And when he doesn't hold his leg, he will either have had a one-off catastrophe in which he'll recover from very quickly, as we've seen all week, or it'll be because Littler's banged, 7 perfect darts in and nicked a break off it. I think it will be really competitive. I think it'll be far more competitive than people think, because James has been very consistent, but at a very high level. Luke has been utterly magnificent, but over the course of this tournament, his peaks and troughs are higher. The gap the gap between his best and his worst is far, far wider than James Wade is. The gap between James Wade's best and worst this week is fairly narrow. The gap between Luke Littler's is his best is better, but his worst is lower. And if he goes up and down throughout that, it only takes him to stay down for a couple of legs, and James Wade will break him, and all of a sudden he's 4 ahead. And I think it's a really interesting final because of that, because of those levels of James's levels have been fairly narrow in the variance of what he's been able to produce. Luke has been quite wide.
Yeah, well, Andy has gone a little bit harsh, I think, telling you that you're on crack, but I wouldn't go that far at all.
No, it's a fairly decent Rioja, to be honest.
Right. So here's my take on it. Right, is I'm not just going off the UK Open final because, as Paul says there, he's going to help Wadey playing just the one game because he doesn't have to practice all day. He can just practice during the afternoon. So that's a big thing, right? What I'd say is this, okay? Luke Littler has made 9 finals in 15 major televised title events this in his very short but amazing career that he's had. He has won 5 of them. Obviously, this will be his 9th. He's won 5 of them, and he's lost 3 of them. There is only one man who has beaten him in all 3 of them. The World Championship 2024, the Players' Championship 2024, and the Premier League 2025. He's a man called Luke Humphries. Don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's the world number 1. So on that basis, and because the fact it's a long format as well, so it means that if he needs to, I don't think he does, but if he does need to, it means he can have a session off because
he can,
because he can, because of those reasons. I think Luke will edge it. Well, say edge it. He won't edge it. I think 18-11. I think is a fair score. I think if you're going to go for it, I think a handicap. I think -5.5. I think is absolutely fair enough. If you can get value on that with Patano, then do it. Is what I'd say. But there we go. It is the end of the Fallout Bar for the World Match Play. It has been a genuine pleasure being back on for the last 3 nights. Honest, I've really enjoyed being awake until 4:15 midnight again, and not having to hear a screaming child. So it's always good. The only reason why I'm going to go and Dan's going to go is because Dan's got a long drive to Blackpool, and I've got a very early train to get later on this morning because I've got to go down to London for Vitality Blast Women's Finals Day. Spoiler, you can hear all the drama and all the reaction on the T20 Blast podcast.
Oh yeah, I shall as well. You know, I'll do that.
Thanks very much, mate. But yes, we're going to be there for that, and we'll be there for the final tomorrow. We are down to 2. 32 came, now just 2 remain on one of the greatest semi-final Saturdays that the World Match Play and the Winter Gardens has ever seen. James Wade, 16-10 up, looking like he was going to cruise it. Then Johnny Clayton said, no. We go to extra legs, 20-18. James Wade wins. And then Luke Littler and Josh Rock play for the first time on a PDC stage and deliver an absolute classic that featured the perfect leg of darts. Both of them hitting 2 back-to-back 180s. Littler pinging the 141 for the 9-dart finish. Rock averaging 180 and losing the leg. In short, stupid. And Luke Littler, in the end, winning 17 legs to 14, which means that he's into his first World Match Play final. He could become the 5th person ever to win some mythical Triple Crown. James Wade could become a 2-time winner of the World Match Play on the anniversary of his 20th appearance in Blackpool. Daniel, thank you very, very much indeed. Enjoy tomorrow, mate. Enjoy the Women's World Match Play. And you and Phil Bars will be back Monday at 8 o'clock to review the whole week on the Live Lounge.
We will be.
Yes,
we will be.
Thank you so much for everybody that's getting involved in the chat room. Really, really do appreciate it. Another busy day of sport across the day. We'll have it covered from all of the action from the Winter Gardens in Blackpool, but from both pair of us and from the whole of the Online Darts team. It's been a massive privilege to be talking to you every single night after the World Match Play. Thank you so much for your support throughout the entire time. And from us all for one final time, it's good night. We'll see you soon.